Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jake Turner. I'm an associate financial planner here at Financial Design Studio, and today we're here to talk about college funding. How much do I need to save for college? Should I be saving for my children's education? And then if I decide to, where do I put that money? We're going to dive into those today on this video. We'll also have some additional resources in the video description here that'll drive you to other videos that we've done in the past around this topic, as well as some different blog articles that we've written around college funding as well. All right, so let's dive into college funding. Let's say you just had your first child. You're thinking, wow, college is in the future. We're planners. How much do we need to be setting aside to fund our child's education? That's a big question, but before you decide how much you're going to fund your child's education, I would recommend that you first look at your own whole financial picture. Are you putting away money for your own future? Talking in retirement accounts. Are you at least getting your employer match at work, if not maxing out those workplace plans? Have you been funding Roth IRAs along the way? Make sure that your financial house is very, very secure. And then once that happens, you still have extra discretionary money. That's when you could think about funding future expenses, college for your children being one of those things. One parlance that we hear in the financial planning world is you can take out loans for your children's education, you cannot take out loans for your own retirement. So think about that when you decide how much to save. All right, let's say you've decided though, how much should you save? This is again going to depend greatly on your own situation. Think about you and your partner. What was your experience like when you went to college? If you went to college, did you get 100% of your college paid for? Did your parents help with everything? Was it 50-50? Did you take out loans for the whole thing? This is something that you as a couple, when you're planning for your children's future, need to decide. Do we want them to have some skin in the game when it comes to funding their college, or do we want to pay for the whole thing? Once you decide that number, that percentage, that amount, then you want to figure out where to put that money. But before we dive into where to put that money, let's just do a quick kind of compound interest example. So let's say you invest $10,000 on the day that your child is born. Very nice gift for a newborn child. You put this money into a 529 account, which we'll dive into more in a minute. And this money, that's it. You don't put any more money in. You put the $10,000 in on day 0. Year 18, when the child is off to college, how much is that money going to be worth? Typically, if we look at historical returns, that money is going to grow to $40,000. So not too bad. Now, I don't know how much $40,000 will cover in the future, but I just want to paint the picture that just that initial investment is going to quadruple by the time that child gets to age 18. Now, let's say we weren't in the situation financially to do that, and we wait, and instead, we invest that same $10,000 when the child is 10. How much will that money be worth when the child is 18? Well, not nearly as much. Using the same assumptions, that money is only going to be worth about, and I say only, it's still a nice growth, $18,500. So you can see there's a pretty big difference. Same amount invested, way different outcome 18 years, or in the other case, 8 years down the line. And that is just the power of compounding over time. So something to think about there. All right, so where should we save this money for college? The main place that most people are going to be saving for college is in an account that's called a 529 plan. And this is a great way to save because you can put money into a 529 plan and it's going to grow tax-free. You can take the money out as long as it's used for qualified education expenses in the future. So a great way to save money for your children's future. And in some states, you may even get a tax deduction at the state level for money that you contribute to that 529 plan. So a 529 plan, you as the parent, you set it up, the child is the beneficiary, and then you can use that money for qualified educational expenses down the road. And you say, well, what if we set this up and my child doesn't end up going to college, or they get a full ride and don't need this money that we set aside for them? This is all part of that planning scenario. Only you can decide how much you want to put into that plan. The nice thing with 529s though, if that were the case, you can change the beneficiary. Maybe you have a second child. You could change them to the beneficiary and then they can use that money. Or you can change it to yourself. You could use it for higher education if that's something that you want to do down the road. And then some of you may have also heard in Secure Act 2.0 That 529 money can be moved to a Roth IRA in the future. The dust has not quite settled on all of that legislation yet, so we'll probably be putting out a video in the future more on some of these Secure 2.0 changes, but that could be an option down the road, but that's not going into effect until 2024. All right, so 529 is one place. Let's talk about another one. Some people will use what's called a UTMA or a UGMA, and that's just a uniform transfer to minor or uniform gift to minor, depending on the state that you live in. And what are these accounts? These are essentially like a taxable account with your child. They are the owner of the account, they're the beneficiary. Now, you own it until they reach the age of majority, so age 18 or 21, depending on what state you live in. Once the child reaches that age, that is their money. You may decide, hey, we put this money aside, we want you to use it for education, but it's their money. They can use it for whatever they want. So a great way to save, and maybe that's what you intend, because maybe they do get massive scholarships, or they decide right out of high school to start a business. Well, they're gonna have that money, and they're gonna be able to use that for those other endeavors versus a 529 plan, which is for qualified educational expenses only. Now, certainly you can take the money out, but there are penalties involved with that. So really, if you're gonna invest money for your child in a 529, the plan is to use it for education. There are other ways that people can also save for education. The main ones being here. Another one would be to use government savings bonds. So Series I or EE, old school. You've heard those Series EE savings bonds. You may have even gotten some, a paper form of these bonds as a child. That's another way that you can use this money in the future. It's going to be exempt from the interest earned if you use it for qualified education expenses. There are some limitations to these. You can only purchase $10,000 per year per person. We'll link to the Series I bond video that we did a few months ago if you want a primer on that. There's also income limits as well, whereas a 529, there's no income limit. It doesn't matter how much your MAGI is, how much money you're making as a household, you can still put money into that 529 account. There are some phase outs for Series I and EE savings bonds to be aware of. Another way that people will do this is through a Roth IRA, take out the basis or the contributions to a Roth IRA. You may or may not know, contributions into a Roth IRA can always be taken out tax-free. But let's say your child was working, from the age of 12 through 18. They had a Roth IRA that they've been contributing to along the way since they had earned income. That is another way that they can take that money and use it for educational expenses as well. So these are the main ways in which people are going to save for their children's education. So just in summary today, saving for college is a very personal decision. College expenses are not cheap, and they typically are rising faster than inflation. So the money that you're looking at today, if your child is just born, let's say a year of college costs $30,000, it's going to be significantly more than that in the future, which is the advantage of starting early. Getting that money into the account of your choice, letting it grow. The other thing to think through is how much do we want to invest in our child's future education? That's a personal decision. Let's say you want to pay for half of their college. Absolutely great. Work with a financial professional, have them run some simulations for you to see exactly how much you need to set aside either monthly or annually in order to hit those savings targets. So that's it. That's the primer today on college funding. Again, in the description below, we'll link to some other content, the I-bond video that I talked about, as well as some other deeper dives into different educational funding vehicles. If you like the video, give it a like, subscribe here, and we will see you in the next video.